All right, are we ready to go?
There's always a moment of a display, and yes, now we're ready. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this month's LGBTQIA Intersectional Task Force. We will start by doing introductions. So we'll play popcorn. So I'm Kelsey, I use she, her pronouns, and I am a member of the Human Rights Commission, and I live in Ward 4, and I'll popcorn to Amelia.
Hi, I'm Amelia Knight. I use she, her pronouns. I also live in Ward 4, and I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission, and I would like to, is the verb popcorn? Or I would like to popcorn Kathy.
Thanks, Amelia. I'm Kathy Ostran-Fonchen. My pronouns are she, her. I also live in South Salem. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission as well as the task force. I'll pass it to Gretchen.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Gretchen Bennett, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm on the staff team at the Mayor and City Manager's Office. And I want to thank and acknowledge Chair Murray for her new assumption of this role. Chair Arredondo from the Human Rights Commission's appointed Kelsey to serve as chair of this task force. And Kelsey, thank you so much for serving.
It is a privilege, and I am very happy to be working with such wonderful people still. I love it. All right, so that was everyone. So we'll move now into public comment. Gretchen, do we have any public comments?
We received none this evening.
Okay, great. Any members have anything? Okay, all right. So Gretchen sent out the minutes from the previous meetings. So I am looking for a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Awesome. Thank you, Amelia. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thanks, Kathy. All right. Any dissent? Okay, so seeing none, we have approved the minutes. Beautiful. Okay, so this is kind of going to be the substantial part of this meeting. The Safe Spaces implementation. We've had a chance to review it, so I'm wondering, does anyone have any thoughts? With Gretchen, you also maybe received some feedback from managers and businesses?
Thank you so much, Kelsey. And Kelsey, I don't know if you had a chance to see an email I sent just a day or so ago with some feedback in from my city colleagues. As I was working towards the process of publishing the information on the website, at first we were just struggling a little bit with workload to get things done. But then the more we were having conversations about getting it uploaded, we found a couple of reasons to essentially pause the publishing at this time. And so I wanted to bring those to your attention and talk them through a little bit. The first thing that started to happen, kind of putting it on the website starts to make it very real. And when we started to think about that, issue number one became a question of workload and our capacity as simultaneously we begin to think about and question what it's going to be like, presuming housing status becomes added to Chapter 97. And we started to think about, this is potentially two significant shifts or areas where a fair number of the public will engage. Maybe not. It's hard to say. I remember back when the Human Rights Commission activated the closed captioning ordinance, we were wondering about, gosh, I wonder how many situations and issues there will be. And that's really been negligible. It's been no problem to absorb. The occasional phone call and community education has been very doable. But so question number one was, I wonder if it's wise to pause. I found myself wanting to recommend a pause of the implementation until after we watch maybe a month of implementation of housing status. So that's one thought for the group's discussion. The other conversation is one that I need to revisit that had emerged last year. For those of you who've been involved for a while in this conversation, I think that at one point we were considering whether or not the commission will have independent authority to establish and launch the program. And on the one hand, and back when we were looking at this, we thought, well, perhaps we do, because it's along the same lines that we do currently in terms of communicating with the public and the community and areas about being inclusive. We respond to inquiries or concerns or complaints right now. And so perhaps it's in that zone, you know, and Chapter 8 of Salem Revised Code discusses this, the commission's role is to promote harmonious intergroup relations by enlisting the partnership of businesses and community. And so you can maybe say, oh, it fits there. On the other hand, it's a whole, in some ways, a new area, because it takes us from assessing a complaint or a unique situation and into really assessing the program, the business or the space for their qualifications in the checklist. It could be stepping outside of promoting harmonious intergroup relations and moving more into like evaluation of spaces in a different way, not sure. And so also it is potentially a new commitment of city resources, because we also don't know, will we have just a few participants or will we have a significant number of participants, and are we prepared and ready, you know, for allowing that? And so the question sort of came about again of, you know, it could be really smart to recommend to city council the project and confirm city council's approval that yes, we do see this as, you know, like recommend it up, just as you did with housing status and closed captioning before that, that you'd recommend that the Human Rights Commission take on the establishment and the implementation of the Safe Spaces campaign. And here's how you see it working. Like, here's the little workflow and what we would imagine and how we would manage it. And just ensure that there's council support for us working in that area. And the thought that was starting to prevail was that could be really smart to do. We wouldn't want to surprise city council if suddenly we were in this discussion, a complicated discussion with a business owner, for example, and we were not accepting them into the program and they thought they should be, and maybe they speak to their city councilor and the councilor might say, now what's going on? How is this what the commission's doing? So it sounded as though it might be smart to pause, formalize the recommendation, bring it to city council, present it, and ask for their decision about how it fits. So for those two reasons, initially I just wasn't able to get it done. But then the more we looked at it, it's like, gosh, we probably should pause. So I want to stop there and invite your conversations. And then if we go that route, I had a question to ask you as we begin to think about those next steps.
What are folks thinking at this point?
I understand the need to pause, even though personally, like, I always want to make progress, and I feel like just personality wise, I'm like, oh, let's get it going, you know. But I understand. I think it's very thoughtful, and I think it's the right decision.
Thank you, Amelia. Kathy, do you have anything?
My first thought is timing. You know, I know we had, if we go back and look at that original time frame that we had put together, I think we're already behind. And so I hate to see things delayed more, but at the same time, I think it makes sense to have council at least aware of what's going on. You know, when you were first talking, Gretchen, about pausing publication, I was initially thinking, you know, maybe we still could publish the draft to get feedback, but then again, if the idea is to get council on board, it might be premature to do that. I mean, because we're publishing a draft to be able to get that feedback, and I still think that that's going to be a lengthy process of receiving and considering that feedback before we're ready to finalize. But at the same time, I don't disagree either. So kind of mixed feelings, I guess.
Thank you, Kathy. On that, I can appreciate that. I know we've already routed the draft a little bit publicly, because back a few months ago, we shared with the what are they called? Maybe the Main Street Association. It's a downtown association of businesses, and we shared some information with them. And that's what generated Jason attending our meeting at one point. We had reached out and offered some information over to the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce. So I know the draft has gotten out there a little bit already to that point, but you know, that's a good question. Let me think about that a little bit and see if the city would be comfortable, you know, like we talked about last month with the words draft being on it. I think maybe what worries me is, again, kind of getting ahead of council. If someone somehow takes issue or feels concerned, and then council's like, well, wait, what? It might make sense to have conversations with individuals who can give us feedback while we continue to work on it. But then once council decides, then publish the document, if that makes any sense. But maybe there's ways to obtain feedback where we can have conversations with people and have a little more opportunity to respond. Somebody might look at it on the webpage and become concerned, but whereas if we're talking and meeting with people, we can provide context. That might be a way to still achieve the goal. I regret the timeline delay too. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know, I just cringed. I thought, oh, we've been at work at this for a while. And maybe that was the wrong call last year when we thought, no, we probably don't need to, you know?
Yeah, things change, and things, I think the perspective on things changes as the more we move ahead. So I understand that. And I think if there's a way that we can get some maybe informal feedback, and you know, so we're still making some progress at the same time, I think I'd be in favor of that.
Great. I also don't know that it needs to take very long. So what I was thinking about asking you tonight is, so if you pivot to the new step of proceeding with council approval, and you imagine what would that document look like? If you're imagining yourself in the shoes of our mayor or a member of city council, what kind of questions and concerns might they have that we can predict and prepare in the staff report? And if they're worried about workload or a substantial city investment, maybe speaking to what is the value add, or Mike used to say the return on the investment. If we had phrases that we think would help highlight what we see as the value of the project, I think that could be helpful. So I wonder what thoughts you'd have as you think about what we should be sure, because I can get right to work on preparing a staff report that can go to city council. I think it could make sense to run it first through the bigger Human Rights Commission, just to confirm the commission's understanding, since go from the task force to the commission and then right to council.
I know for me, I want it out there. I'm disappointed that this is another delay, but we talked about in a previous meeting that we want this done well and done right. And if that means kind of bolstering it up a little bit more, getting a council involved, and I think having that backing is really important and powerful. That says, like, the city, it's not just the task force, the city council is behind this. I think that could be really helpful. And yeah, I think if we do some just adding those details and then looping in council and being able to just give them like a ready to go document, I think that would be great. And then maybe like more wheels will be turning. So it's not ideal, but if this needs to happen in order for this project to go forward and be implemented, I want to support that.
One other advantage is that for anybody who's tuning into city council, it's some extra visibility potentially.
I think it's a good exercise for us to show the worth of this project and the potential impacts. Maybe we can look into similar programs and see how incidences and crimes were reduced, and somehow associate that with a monetary value. Maybe. I'm trying to think, because I think they would be receptive towards that.
That's a brilliant idea, Amelia. Yeah, how that data
Thank you.
to back that.
Money talks, right? And like saving money talks, and saving people from crimes is so powerful. And I think if we could pull any information, even if we say like, this is speculative, but this is what we think we could maybe do, and we could find ways to measure it and prove how successful our project is over time. And that might allow more funding and time for our project to expand and get more people to join our program for safe spaces.
Great. Gretchen, what do you need from us to help move this forward?
Oh, I just want to say there are journal articles that have investigated like how much crime costs. Okay, great.
Amelia, thank you. That's a great point. I can think of a couple things. Kelsey, thank you for the question. And one is just kind of building on what you were just talking about, is if you're aware of any particular locales that have something similar where we might be able to look at impact data. I'm aware of where we started, which was looking at the program in the city of Seattle, but our model is really quite different. You know, we really started by looking at that, but then really developed something different than what Seattle has. So I don't know if that's comparable. And then you found, Kelsey, that program with the Out Foundation, but I haven't discovered anything else. But I don't that. So one way of helping would be to, if we all did some extra searching, you know, to try to see if we could discover like programs and what their impact or results are. I think that would be really helpful. And then my other question, oh, please go ahead, Amelia.
Sorry, I also agree. And I think we should still include those other programs and say that they're sister programs and we're expecting and anticipating very similar results.
Great. The other question is, I would just ask you, like, in your own words, what is the value add that you are seeing, you know, as community members in Salem? Like, what drew you to want this to happen? You know, even maybe a quote or two from you as task force members, or objectives that you would like to highlight. You know, I'll be drafting a report that would have, there's a section called facts and findings where you put in the information. There is a section called background, if there's any like background information we want to include. And then I can attach the documents that we've prepared as attachments to the council report. But
I really like that, because I could add like my testimony of why I'm so passionate about this project, you know?
Absolutely. And there's also an opportunity to do that in public comment. You could even, if you wanted lots of time for an individual testimony, there could be public comment provided at the council meeting, or I could make an attachment that has specific, more in-depth pieces as well. Or there can be short things of just a couple sentences that can fit into the report. So it's however people want to communicate.
I personally think that the report, like having testimonies and like what we see of potential positive impacts would resonate longer sometimes than presenting. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. So it sounds like we have, for our homework, is look further to see if there are other organizations that are doing something similar. What is their impact data? And then sending Gretchen, if we have and want to send a personal testimony. That sound right?
Yeah.
It does, and I'll see if I can find some of those publications on the cost of crime.
Thank you, Amelia.
Gretchen, what's the timing of getting that information to you?
I was just going to ask you, speaking of everyone's observation of the timeline, why don't we map that out together a little bit? So with the exception of the month of December, council meets on the 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month. And we'll want to, I guess my thinking is that we'll want to prepare the document essentially that would go to council, but then first present it to the Human Rights Commission for their review and approval. And then it could hit a council meeting. So working backward, I wonder if you all would imagine like what you would see as doable and when you'd like to get it done. I'm trying to think. I would need probably a week or two of time just to write up a draft. I'd want to give you all a chance to look at the draft. So here's one example. If everybody got me materials by I'm looking at a calendar. If I had your inputs and materials and did my own homework and had it all by September 14th, I could have a draft like ready to be approved by commission and council report at your September 28th task force meeting. And then we could ask the Human Rights Commission to look at it at the October 12th meeting of the Human Rights Commission. And then assuming all goes well, as long as I pre-prepare my colleagues, I could have it, and that always has to be approved by the city manager and the mayor, but assuming approval, it could be on the city council's October 24th agenda. So how's that for a proposed timeline?
I like it. I think kind of giving too much time, people tend to forget about things. When I say people, I mean me. So I think like a couple of weeks, I think that will be a little bit easier to get that stuff in and get this done as soon as possible.
I also agree with that.
Looking at my calendar too, that seems to make the most sense following that time frame.
Great. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't continue to try to gather feedback, you know, as any of us have opportunities to engage with owners of spaces, managers of spaces, businesses. We could be talking about it and asking people, how is this hitting you? What would you need? You know, I think that's completely fine to continue to do.
Awesome. Anything else for that to safe spaces implementation?
Not from my end, Kelsey. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited. So next, we need to start planning Transgender Day of Remembrance. That is on November 20th. So historically, the task force has done something. Gretchen, I don't know if you could kind of give us a brief history of like recent events. So we need to start discussing like what we want to do.
Thank you. Absolutely. The events in recent years, the past couple have been on Zoom and the ones before have been in person. And I think we've decided this year to do a hybrid. And this task force has prepared the flyer or the the visual item, we kind of use the same little visual for social media, for postings, for posters, etc. So we've traditionally designed that and distributed. We use the city's distribution channels, as well. We've typically mapped out the run of show of the evening. So we think through, okay, who will open the event? Who will facilitate the event? What speakers would you like? We've had at different times, like a speaker near the beginning and a speaker near the end. And then we've identified people who could be readers, because anyone who's been before will know the heart of the event is in reading the names of people who've lost their lives due to anti-transgender violence. So we identify readers. We added, at the last meeting, we added an idea to have also the names visually being displayed, to be sure to offer that respect. So there's an element in arranging for the visual presentation of the names. This task force also thinks about who will want to have on hand that evening, since we're going back to having at least partially in person, to greet people, to help them get their seat, answer any questions there might be. So we'll need some hospitality greeter volunteers too. So those are, I think, really the function of the task force is really starting to dig into the planning. I'll offer just a couple of other details. I was able to reserve the library. Folks were interested at the last meeting about if we can use Laux Auditorium and if it's okay that we use it when the library is not open. And we do have that reservation. So although the library closes at 5, our event would be at 7, but you might know Laux has a really nice, easy, direct access in. So I don't think it'll be complicated. And then I guess the only other thing I could maybe add real quick is that we do have the flyer that our member Byron Kimball designed last year. And you can, if you like, use that as a starting point, or you might desire something different.
Great. Okay. What do folks think about kind of that general plan, having an opening, a speaker to a memorial reading of the names? Yeah, what do folks think about that?
Sounds good to me. I participated in last year's as a reader, and I watched the previous years on Zoom, but I have not seen what an in-person event looks like. And we'll have to think about the appearance, what sorts of things we want to have, and there's a candlelight element to it. I don't know where the candles come from, if that's something that we would have to provide, or if the city has something for that. Gretchen, do you know where they came from in the past?
Actually, we'll have some acquisition to do. The indoor candles, the year that we went indoor, we borrowed little battery flickery tea lights that a member of the Human Rights Commission had. When we've been out of doors, we used those real candles with real fire flame, and we do have an ample supply of those. A commission member years ago donated 2 generous boxes of those, and we still have a lot of those left. But we don't have those little tea light flickery things. So I don't know, we could put the word out on if anybody has any that we could just borrow, or if we'll need to buy some. We aren't allowed to do fire inside. That's the next question probably, and I've already checked on that. They won't let you.
I hope not at the library.
Okay. Do we want to kind of dole out responsibilities? If someone, I love designing things, so if no one is super pumped about doing the poster, I would love to do the poster. But yeah, does anyone have any ideas about potential speakers that Gretchen or I can reach out to?
I did reach out to a colleague of mine who is a poet, who said that they didn't have any material, but they would be happy to contribute something. And so I can forward on the contact information.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you. Gretchen, do we have contact information from previous speakers?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
So if anybody can think of past speakers that you'd like to invite back, that's certainly a choice.
And then do we have any sort of budget to like pay speakers to purchase said flickering candles?
You know, we've not before paid speakers. That's a good and fair question, but we didn't contemplate that in the budget. I suppose it would depend on how much you have in mind and if that would work within the general city council budget. I do believe I should price the tea lights before I say this, but I do believe they're probably going to be low enough cost that that could come out of a supply budget that we have, you know, again, at the city council office. And so I would suspect those are ultimately purchasable if we can't score. Like, for example, it occurs to me, I should see, does the library or Center 50 Plus actually already have some that I might just be able to commandeer for the night? So I will do a little investigating.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to pay speakers, especially if they are trans. I want to pay them for that labor. So I don't know what the going rate is for general speakers. Do we have an idea?
Not something I have much knowledge about.
Like $100?
I bet it varies so tremendously. I'm not sure how to jump in on it, but yeah, it's a good question.
I can do some looking around. And I'll let you know about like a general cost.
Thank you.
Yeah. I can also reach out to, there's probably some students at Willamette who would like to be a part of this. So I can reach out to my contacts there to see if anyone wants to join. Yeah. Yeah, is anyone else feeling, I have a feeling we'll all be readers or greeters. If you know anyone else who would like to play that role, that'd be really great. You can send them or send us their contact information.
Well, last year, I believe Mike and Carico both spoke and were readers, and there was one additional reader as well. So I don't know, if they would be willing to do it again this year. I think Mike did mention something about that at the last meeting.
They did. I remember Mike at the last meeting said that they'd be happy to be a reader if the group would like. So that's certainly a choice. And yeah, if you like, I can follow up with Tricarico and with the other person who was a reader last year, if you like, or if you'd like to rotate. It is, I will say, one tip is if you have someone who has knowledge or familiarity with Spanish languages, there's a heavy concentration of names traditionally from Brazil and South America. And so pronunciation is easier when you know some Spanish. That's one thing I'll mention. Oh, and also thinking ahead about Kelsey, as you think about the update to the Human Rights Commission, inviting members of the Human Rights Commission into these opportunities is another opportunity, another idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think adding to our homework, think of anyone who might be interested in being a speaker or a reader or a greeter. And are folks okay if I design a poster? Okay. I'll send that out to folks for approval. I'll definitely have that ready by next meeting, probably earlier. What else for this event?
Kelsey, would it help you to see past examples, or would that just interfere with the design process?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
All right. Well, I feel like we are on a good path with that. So thanks for being so awesome, everyone. So if we don't have anything else for that event, we'll move into member remarks and announcements. Is there anything from folks here?
I kind of have an announcement. So I don't know how much participation I'll be able to contribute in October because my wife and I are having twins. And we're due at the end of October, but it could come and technically any time now. Kelsey, thank you. I love your facial journey.
Congratulations, Amelia. That's exciting.
Congratulations. That is so amazing. Good for you both.
Thank you. Yeah, we're feeling very, very lucky.
Oh, that warms my heart. What a good announcement. Well, obviously that is more than okay, and we will support you however you want to be supported. Yay.
Thank you.
Any other remarks or announcements?
I'm just gonna say thank you, Kelsey, for taking on the role of chair.
Yeah, y'all are such a super group. Like I'm happy to do it. All right, well, if no one has anything else, we can wrap up our meeting. Okay, all right. Well, I hope everyone has a really great night. We don't need to close the meeting, right?
No,
Okay.
We're informal enough to be able to do that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, have a good rest of your night and stay cool. And start working on our homework.